I'm gonna have to.
So this is the Dave and Katie show with a special guest, Carla Maples, talking
Hello.
about how families are impacted with mental health and how much all of us don't know. But the beautiful thing is we're all here today to talk about what we don't know and, really just talk it through so we can give people additional insight on not only how to support ourselves, but how to support our loved ones around us. So, Carla, as you know, Dave's the beauty on this show. So we'll try to keep up with him. And everybody comes to the show for Dave. And so we just have to realize that we're secondary and tertiary. So
Uh,
glad you're
I have
here.
I have a question,
Oh, I'm
or
sorry.
I would just like to this. I like to thank our sponsor, Crystal Jesse Law Firm, and Crystal, we're waiting on them shirts. Just saying, but thank
Shirts,
you.
lobster, and Pal's fries. So
Oh
thank you.
yeah.
So
Mm.
Carla, thank you for being on here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and something, I mean, if you want to give a little bit of a background, as to how we kind of all got introduced, I think, your background with having a special family member who's a first responder, and then a really big piece of you being skeptical, which
Hmm.
rightfully so. Everybody should be skeptical. But
Yes,
maybe talking about a little bit like what got you past that.
yes,
That what
absolutely.
would you have liked to have learned as a family member about these treatments that you really may have saw a big change with your family member?
Yes. Well, I will say from a young age, kindergarten, my son always knew he wanted to be a police officer. He was following in his father's shoes, his uncle's shoes. Um, I knew he had the heart of a servant to protect, but I also knew that there would probably come a time when something was going to happen so phenomenal that he may not be able to just maintain his happy, person that he was for the most part, say outside of work. So, the middle of August, he was on duty, and he worked an extremely traumatic accident, where people died. Um, and it really, really, really took a toll on him, which really, really, really took a toll on me as his mom. When your family's hurting, you're hurting, and you just feel everything they feel, and you want them to feel better. You just want them to feel better and feel normal and get back to their normal self. So, fast forward to, I'm going to say about, let's see, that was August, September, October, November. I'm going to say around December, maybe November. Matthew's friend had told him about Revitalist and about ketamine. And so when Matthew mentioned it to me and I heard the word ketamine, I was apprehensive and I'm like, I don't know about that. I'm not sure if you should do this, but it was because I didn't know enough about it. I didn't understand it. So, as his mother, the first thing I did was research it. And I had spoken to several friends and, researched online. And I was like, hmm, okay, maybe this is okay. I just wanted my son to be okay. So, once we got to Revitalis for his very first treatment, I mean, as soon as we pulled in the parking lot, I had a piece. One of my, gifts is like gut instinct is 99% of the time right. Um, I'm a discerning person. Um, we walked in the door and immediately I felt peace. For his first treatment, I stayed there and waited out in the lobby. But I was in the room on the left. I forget what it's called, but it's like a very relaxing room. Like they turned a little heater on for me, and I just sat there and read a book. Um, and then the area over on the right, like I was like, this place just feels like a really nice, cozy blanket. And, from the first treatment, I was like, he's going to be fine. And driving home after the first treatment, I'm like, yeah, everything is good. I had a peace about it as his mom. I just didn't want anything to happen to my son. But after treatment 2, 3, watching the video on Dave that Matthew showed me, I was like, holy cow, this really is a good thing. And it could help so many people. I'm a family member who's coming into this very blindly. And I'm like, oh my gosh, very skeptical about it as his mother. Um, and I've always tended to err a little bit on the side of caution. That came from a mother, the way that I was raised and everything. But after being part of his journey and meeting the staff and, getting to meet Dave and see his story online, like it totally brought back my old son
Mhm.
pre traumatic car accident back in the middle of August. Like he whistles again, he laughs, he smiles. Like, I'm very thankful that I have him back.
That's awesome. And that's a piece of it, right? Is looking at the current mindset in mental health,
Mhm.
what our current system is, which hopefully it will close soon because
Mhm.
it doesn't make any sense, is
Mhm.
when we start having these symptoms, and it
Mhm.
could be, PTSD, depression, anxiety, bipolar, suicidality,
Mhm.
whatever.
Mhm.
When we start having these symptoms, our current system says, oh, you need to get on pills to manage this. And the best
Mhm.
that we can do is try to help you to manage it for the rest of your life. But what you're
Right.
seeing is what we've been seeing for years with ketamine.
Yes.
Ketamine can get you to go into remission of your symptoms. And
Yes.
that's the pieces as to how we want to support people because we want them to
Mhm.
go back to who they were. And the
Right.
sooner that we can actually break that, it's an
Yes.
intervention. Then we can manage it more long term because what Matthew has to see now, and you've probably seen this, and PTSD, all these guys or all these things, I have my certain opinions as or theories as to what I think happens, but my
Mhm.
personal opinion is when we get way too much stimulation at one time that our
Mhm.
brain can't decipher, the brain picks
Mhm.
up on that as a threat.
Mhm.
And then what happens, and they've proven this, is that our brains don't know time.
Mhm. Mhm.
So what happened to him back in August, like he's
Mhm.
like, why am I still reacting this way? His brain can release all these chemicals if it feels like
Yes.
that threat is something similar. So it's trying to
Mhm.
protect, but
Mhm.
it's destroying the person because it's protecting from something that's not even there anymore. So
Yes.
when you saw that like piece, and that's what I tell people is like what happens with trauma is the memory gets attached to an emotion and the
Mhm.
emotion gets attached to a memory and they're
Mhm.
enmeshed and you can't break them, and every
Right.
time that memory comes up you can have this emotional response, or this
Mhm.
emotional response could cause the memory to come up, and it's like being in an abusive relationship with yourself. You're so close
Yes.
to it, you can't
Right.
see where it starts and where it stops. And what
Right.
ketamine naturally does is it
Mhm.
it it brings it up,
Right.
but it detaches it and they can see it from afar and they're like, yeah,
Yes.
that makes sense as to why I would feel that way during that time. But we're
Yes.
showing our brain it's not a threat. It's
Right.
okay. And once
Right.
the brain sees that it's not a threat, it puts it
Mhm.
into the long-term memory. Long-term memory doesn't have any emotions attached to it. So what we're doing
Mhm.
is we are retraining our
Mhm.
brain. And that's the beautiful thing now is that we
Yes.
can see that our brain can be retrained, but
Right.
medications and psychotherapy don't
Mhm.
retrain your brain. You've
Right.
got to be in this full immersive experience that
Mhm.
retrains it. Yes,
Right.
Daisha.
Uh, okay, two things. Well, you have cracked the case on why um, like I'm 100% a huge success story.
Mhm.
First and foremost,
Mhm.
we're still working on getting me to that end goal, but now that I realize you gotta have a brain, well, we already know I don't have one, Katie, so that's why we've never reached the goal line. Um, but what I want to ask you, Carl, like, can you explain maybe some of the things that you started noticing about him before, like you realize there's a problem that we need to get addressed? I get what you were saying about now. He whistles, he laughs, he smiles because those things go away.
Mhm.
Um, but like, what can you remember? Like the first time, did he speak to you about all this stuff? Did he tell you about his job on a daily basis? And then two, did like what was the first thing you noticed?
I'm gonna say the first thing I noticed was I've never heard my son sob as hard as he sobbed when he called me and said, I couldn't save them, Mom. I couldn't save them. And I said, Sweetheart, you cannot put that on yourself. And I understood a little bit about where he was coming from because when I lost a friend very tragically, um, when that person left this world, I felt that way too. Like it was my fault. And so the first thing I noticed was how extremely hard he took it. I could understand why he took it extremely hard being in that line of work. Like, you want to be able to help everybody that you can. But the second thing I noticed was his appetite. And my son was a eater. I mean, he's always, you know, he's never had a weight problem and he's always ate really good. And it just, he did, his pizzazz just went out the window. He did not have an appetite. He was very sad, very down. I mean, more so than usual. I mean, if I could stress like the normal human being, the average human being, yes, what we see at our jobs or what we go through on a daily basis or whatever happens to us in our lives, uh, you know, I'm speaking from experience too. We go through and we see some things that are horrific and awful and terrible. However, I've always felt this way, regardless if my son was in law enforcement or not. The things that they have to hear, see, smell, taste, all of that stuff. It is nothing that we, as a normal, everyday human being out here walking, doing our, whatever, our daily job, it's unlike anything anybody else will ever have to experience. So, I've heard people say, well, there's got to be something that can be done. Okay, short of medication, traditional therapy, I mean, there has to be something more. I mean, I was very distraught as his mother to have to see my child going through that and just feeling like there's nothing that can be done. And I was just so thankful once I knew more about it, once I went through this with him. Yeah, there is more that can be done. I might have
If the
gotten off
brain
on a tangent a little bit. Sorry, guys, if I
Well,
did.
no, it's not tangents. It's learning how to describe this because there's so many family members out there that like you may see it, you may sense it, and then they feel helpless because they don't know. So what you're actually talking about is you're processing it because there's so many people out there who haven't been able to do that. And I
Yeah.
think that's one thing, Carla, from what I've seen working in the space for a while is if our brain can truly be immersed in it,
Mhm.
then it can duplicate it. It can see
Mhm.
it. Right.
Mhm.
So I tell people all the time, it's like muscle memory. Like the whole world believes in muscle memory. And I love
Mhm.
to pop everybody's bubble and say, well, here's the fun thing. Our muscles actually don't have memory. Your brain remembers the physical piece. The brain also remembers the behavioral piece. And once
Mhm.
our brain starts doing things that we don't necessarily agree with, a lot of
Mhm.
times we internalize that and we feel like we're a bad person or a worse, or like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do all this? Whatever.
Mhm.
But if we can
Mhm.
start seeing it from like, okay, brain, what are you doing? Like
Mhm.
when it comes up and I act this way, I may
Yeah.
not understand why I'm acting this way, but I
Mhm.
can respect to try to understand it.
Yes, absolutely. That is such a good point, Katie, because I think if more people would understand, if the individual that is going through this time in their life, if they can't wrap their head around it, then you, as somebody on the outside, and when I say you, society, like, don't try to beat them down more. The best thing you can do for your family, your loved ones, and your friends, be as supportive as you can. You may not understand what they're going through, but guess what? They don't fully understand it either.
That's right.
So be supportive. If they say, hey, I want to try this treatment, whatever, uh, I shared with you all before, I've always been, a believer in traditional medication or therapy, whatever works for an individual, until I saw my son go through this. And this has helped so much more than having to take something every day or
Well,
pay
and
for
could
therapy for the rest of your life. Not that
and,
there's anything wrong, but I just really feel like this is like something that could benefit so many people.
right. And can you imagine, like, so the people out there that are struggling with trauma or whatever else, like the
Mhm,
medications that we put people on, we tell them to
mhm,
stay on it, right, every day for at least 6 weeks.
mhm.
And you saw instant results with your son that day.
Oh, yeah. The
Like you can
first day.
understand why people who are struggling, why they
Yes.
may kill themselves if they have to
Oh
be
my
on that
gosh.
med and wait 6 weeks and they don't even know, right? They've only got about a 30% chance that that medicine's actually
Yeah,
going to help anything. So they have a very
right.
low probability of feeling better. But lo and
Exactly.
behold, this ketamine with the infusion
Yes.
one day gives them a breath.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could definitely tell a huge difference, and so could Matthew after the first treatment. Then the second one came along, and it's like, oh, mom, I'm starting to really feel so much better. And then the third, and then the fourth. And it was like we were both kind of sad on this sixth treatment. I mean, I realize, there's boosters, and of course he can come back and everything like that. But I just felt like, oh,
So
this
many
place
layers that
has
come off.
been so great for my son. Like, I'm thankful y'all are just down the road. I mean, I really am. Technically, it's an hour, but still, that's down the road. I mean, I feel like you all are truly a blessing in my son's life. I know you are in Dave's life, and, so many other people.
Well, thank you. And that's why we're here, right? Is to advocate. Dave, you have a question.
Yeah, I got three.
Oh,
One,
if you remember all three of them, I'm gonna like
no, I'm
be
not.
excited.
I done forgot the first one that I was thinking of. But so here's the thing about, I liked what you said there about you almost got disappointed when you were getting to number six. Um, I think that speaks a little bit to uh, revitalists and the fact that they've done their due diligence, and six is the standard. Um, could they go say in 10 and try to get more money? Absolutely, but
Mhm.
that's not the goal. So
Right.
kudos to Revivalist for that.
Mhm.
Two, um, we're not we're not saying that people don't need to take other medication or
Right.
shouldn't take other medication, because
Right. Exactly.
for me,
That's true.
I have to. But
Same here. Same here.
yeah, I mean, Katie. I mean, the breath is the thing I always say, and I I can remember being so excited with the first six treatments of getting that breath, because that meant
Mhm.
everything just slowed down.
Mhm.
Um, to where now I never get anywhere close to that extreme where um, I don't get excited anymore to go see him, because it's a dramatic change. Like
Yeah.
it 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 makes you, and I hate this word, but it makes you normal, but you don't quite feel normal, but
Mhm.
that's how you should be.
Right.
Because you
And
probably
so,
forgot what normal felt like, Dave, because you've
well,
been
I
fighting for
did.
so long to survive.
Yeah, and that's why I always was excited about, even when I would throw up from just, um, I get a little sick off of, even when I get put to sleep for surgery, that gets me a little, the anesthesia, that crap
Yeah, it
gets me
affects
sick.
everybody different. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but it was like no pain, no gain on that. Well,
Mhm.
now we've got it. We're just so much better off, to
Yeah.
where I remember the pain of the throwing up and stuff. So I don't get excited. Actually, I fight Katie a lot of times on them, but
Yes.
they're always
Mhm.
better 2 days later, and it's just like, gosh, I need to. And excuse my language, but I need to quit being a dumbass and getting in my way, because we know what
He says that,
gives
I
you.
don't. I just tease him.
Dave, I am
That's
so glad
true.
you said that. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, 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 you're fine.
Talking about getting back to a little bit of normalcy. I mean, I cannot tell you, like, I'm a huge fan of the Chicago series on Wednesday nights. I don't stay up late enough to watch the police one because I got to go to work the next morning. But I love Chicago Med and Chicago Fire. Well, anytime he would come home and I had Chicago Fire on in my bedroom, I made sure to mute it. Well, after, because I didn't want him to hear anything. Um, the last time I muted it, which was, I want to say, after his fifth treatment, um, and it's not like he comes home every Wednesday night while I'm watching it at the same time. But if he did, I was respectful of muting it. I want to say it was after his fifth treatment, and I muted it. Well, he came in there to talk to me, and he goes, "Oh, mom, you don't have to do that." He goes, "I promise you, after my treatments, I forget how many he'd had." He was like, "It's okay, mom. If I hear that, I'm going to be okay." And so I think that right there speaks volumes that he was okay with me not change. I didn't have to change it. I didn't need to mute it. It's okay, mom. I got this. You know, he was feeling better.
He's
What
a
would you
strong person too.
Yes.
yeah, I mean, well, and that's the biggest thing, Dave, with police officers, firefighters, all the guys and gals.
Hose draggers.
Post draggers, yes, in a respectful way. But
Yes.
we're taught not to admit weakness necessarily, but we're taught to toughen
It's
up.
show weakness.
Yeah,
It's
right.
about
Not
showing
yeah.
it. It's just a bad misconception. There is no weakness.
Yeah.
I mean, there's truly not.
Well, and
Yeah.
we look at like addiction. So so many first responders, nurses, medical professionals, like we'll go to addiction first much more easily, whether that's drinking, whether it's drugs, whether,
Mhm.
whatever
Mhm.
else, we're self-medicating.
Mhm.
Because we don't look at that as a weakness,
Mhm.
necessarily. We look at that as like tough man, like, oh, let's all go out to drinks and all this other stuff. But little
Yeah.
do we all know, and what you're kind of saying, Carla, is like, when they see these things time over time, our brain, from what I can tell, just talking to people, if we see something significant that kind of like
Mhm.
knocks our views on life,
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
where it's like, okay, wait a minute, like I didn't, and not even
Yeah.
like if we knew it could happen or not happen. It's just, it's just a significant time that goes into our memory. If we
Right.
get things like that knock us off a little bit, to me, from what I've seen, it takes
Mhm.
people about 6 months to effectively transition to understanding that that's a normal part of life. And that could
Mhm.
be a traumatic death, that could be a divorce,
Mhm.
that could be your dog dies. But it's something that just kind of like knocks your core off.
Mhm.
So if we're
Mhm.
seeing these things, especially police officers, first responders, and things, we're seeing these things time over time. Like, yes, we eventually, a death is a death. We see it happens,
Mhm.
whatever, right? We all die
Mhm.
sometime. We see that.
Mhm.
It's the one-offs that get us, because
Yes.
that we're already there anyway. But
Mhm.
those one-offs that get us, that's what's
Mhm.
going to, like, we may not even recognize it, I guess, but that's what's going to get us to kind of question things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then that's when we feel out of control. And what I
Mhm.
like to talk to people about is, like, I believe the brain goes to polarities when it's in conflict. And
Mhm.
so when we feel out of control in a certain situation, we try to over control that situation. So talk about Matthew, how he wished he could have saved those people, so
Yes.
something shifted his court just a touch to
Mhm.
where he lost his base.
Mhm.
And that's why interventions like ketamine, as compared to
Mhm.
medications, I'm so
Mhm.
much pro on, because
Mhm.
the interventions help you to find your base again. And then we can use the medications to support later on. But what we're doing right now is kind of back ass backwards, to where we give people medications that take forever,
Yes.
and they're not giving you a data reference. They're not giving you your North Star. Your North Star just got shifted, and
Right.
you need to rebuild your North Star again. And that's what
Mhm.
ketamine allows you to do. It gives you a different
Mhm.
date.
Yes.
Two
Go ahead,
two
Dave.
things, Katie. One, I consider ketamine a medication. I consider it the same thing as taking my blood pressure pill.
Okay.
Um,
But
it,
not
it, it,
daily.
it no, but it's still a medication. It's not a. It may be classified as a. I don't. Let me just go. Okay, let me go to this. Okay, let's take mushrooms. That's considered a psychedelic. Okay, here's the problem with that. How much research, how much is out there information wise showing what it does from a medical standpoint on mental health, and yet we only focus on it's a hallucinogen. Well,
Mhm.
big whoopee deal. If you do
Yeah.
it in a medical clinical
Yes.
environment,
Right. Exactly.
it is a medicine. It is a
Yes.
treatment. It's not
Yes.
a drug.
Right. And that was one of the things that put my mind at ease when Matthew was telling me who all would be there at Revitalist that was part of his ketamine
His
journey.
treatment team.
Like, it's not like I'm just walking in, mom, and Joe Blow off the street is administering this. You know, it is professionals that know what they're doing. I mean, Katie, can you say a little bit more to that as far as like the people that are present, like during a given treatment? Like,
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, so you have, right, you want to, and this is the integration, right? This is what Medicare actually tried to do in the early 2000s, but nobody's really been able to appropriately do it. So that we've actually done it, which I'm very excited about. But that was when
yes.
Medicare actually came about in the early 2000s and said, hey, we need to start including behavioral providers with medical providers. Like, they
Mm-hmm.
came out to say that, right? So what
Mm-hmm.
people started doing is, like, at primary care offices, they have a therapist that works at the primary care office, but the medical provider still doesn't work with the behavioral provider. So,
Right.
so what we've done, and this was completely accidental actually, because I didn't know how to work with therapists. And
Mhm.
my primary degree is anesthesia, so I know how to work with drugs very well. But
Right.
what we did, right, is, what ketamine does is it puts your brain into a neutral capacity.
Mhm.
So you're sitting at one with yourself. And when your
Mhm.
brain does that, it's vulnerable, right? So anytime
Mhm.
we're sitting in the present, we're all vulnerable. That's why
Mhm.
when we struggle with mental health, we're either stuck in the past or stuck in the future because it's not real and we feel like we can control it. So it's giving
Mhm.
us, false beliefs per se. But
Mhm.
with ketamine, when we're the medical providers here, right? They
Mhm.
start the IV, they dose the ketamine, they will
Mhm.
titrate it to effect to kind of get you in that neutral space. When you're in that
Mhm.
neutral space, that's when, like, people will be like, this is like truth serum for my soul. And they're not wrong. Like, things will
Yes.
come up and you're like, oh my gosh, this makes so much more sense now. So the
Yes.
therapist who's in the room with that person is able, and
Mhm.
not everybody has to have therapists in the room. I get that. I mean, that's whatever, like
Right.
where that person wants to support them. But
Right.
when that therapist is in the room, like, I'll tell
Mhm.
people, I'm like, this is going to make no sense to you. There's not a
Mhm.
specific narrative. It doesn't go from
Right.
beginning to end. What it does
Mhm.
is it's your subconscious that's coming up and it's allowing
Yes.
us to analyze our subconscious. So we
Mhm.
could be sitting there talking about like a yellow bird and there was a sunny day and there was this dress
Yeah.
that was next to this fish when I was 5, and
Yeah.
I tell people, I'm like, you give those details to the therapist, like you give them the
Mhm.
stars, they will help you to make the constellation because
Yeah.
our gut, our subconscious, and this is a statistic I like to tell a lot of people. When I saw this statistic, I was like, okay, well, life makes sense now.
Mhm.
One, so it's not 95% of the time, every
Mhm.
decision that we make is based on our subconscious. It's not based on your conscious
Wow.
decision. Your conscious decisions are based 5% of the time. So if
Wow,
we can
that's
get our
interesting.
brain in this space, which you can do with meditation, but it's really hard to learn how to meditate when you're in this survival mode,
Mhm.
right? So when
Mhm.
something knocks us off track,
Yeah.
there's a threat here, we've got triggers. We don't know why we're reacting like this, but all of a sudden we're in this war zone of we got to survive and everything's out to,
Yeah.
and the brain duplicates what it knows, right? So when it's
Right.
doing that, it's building this, we're going down this wrong path. And I'll tell people, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with your brain. Your
Mhm.
brain's doing what it needs to do in order to protect you. It's trying to make the best decisions to protect you, but
Yes.
it's on the wrong path.
Uh-huh.
So what ketamine does is allows us to, this path that we've been on for 2 days, 10 years, 40 years. It
Mhm.
takes us back to the trailhead to
Mhm.
where we can say, okay, wait a minute. I don't want to be on this path anymore. How about we go on
Mhm.
this path? And,
Mhm.
so the combination of medical providers and behavioral providers
Mhm. Mhm.
is super powerful because
Yeah.
we're trained so differently, so
Yes.
differently. And I've worked now with about 100 therapists, and I understand therapy language now. But therapy language compared to medical language, two
Mhm.
completely different aspects. Like literally, to where like I did not understand the terminology that a lot of therapists use because we're not
Mhm.
around. That's what people don't understand in the medical community.
Mhm.
Primary care treats 70% of mental health.
Mhm. Mhm.
They're trained 6 weeks in medical school. 6 weeks
Mm.
in medical school, they do psych, right? And then
Mm.
they'll do a psych rotation, but we do psych rotations in nursing school too, right? So your
Mhm.
primary providers that are caring for people with mental health have
Mhm.
literally had no training
Mhm.
on it.
Mhm.
So we're the
They
ones
mean well,
they
but
that's right. And we're not trained on it. And what we're seeing now, which
yeah.
Dave's excited about this, which I am too, but is we're opening up the lab at Revitalist in Knoxville that anybody can, use. But and this is the thing, Carla, and this is what Dave and I are working on for it feels like a long time, but
Uh-huh.
lifetimes. Is they're now proven that the heart and the brain are directly related to mental health, right?
Oh,
So
yeah. Mm.
guess who has never been trained on the brain or the heart specifically in their curriculums? Psychiatrists and therapists.
Wow.
And
So the
Dave
people
Shell.
that are leading, and Dave Shell. So the people that are leading all of this, right?
Mhm.
They don't
Mhm.
understand. And primary care is probably pretty good. They should be able to read EKGs. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they know how to read EKGs, but they don't really
Yeah.
know how to read EEGs, which is the electrical activity of the brain. But we're seeing now that like there's so many gaps, Carla. And these
Yeah.
gaps are literally causing people to die because you
Yeah.
get it. You're a family member. You
Yes.
saw your family
Yes.
member struggling. And it's
Yes.
like, well, we've got to take a chance on
Mhm.
something, you know. So
Mhm.
he took a chance, you took a chance. Fortunately,
Mhm.
you all had the bravery to do that. But there's a lot
Yeah.
of people out there who are like, nope, like, not unless my provider tells me or if my therapist tells me. And it's like, there's, I don't know, the system's so broken,
It
to
is very
where,
broken.
and this is why we do this podcast here, is because we want to advocate for people to say, listen, like, you know, there are people out there, you don't have to do it on your own. We all
Mhm.
chanced it too. Like when I first opened the clinic, I was like, yeah, we'll do ketamine. I know ketamine really well. We'll do it for pain and mental health. And then I
Yeah.
said when I was talking to people, and where I was an ICU nurse for about 10 years,
Uh-huh.
and my biggest thing that I saw, there's no advocacy for the people out in the communities. They're having to
Yes.
advocate for themselves. They have no idea what's going on. Their providers don't speak to each other because they don't respect each other or they don't have time. Like in the
Mhm.
hospital setting, we have a team. If you come in, I don't
Mhm.
know cardiac, I don't know pulmonary, I'm going to call in these specialists to
Right.
do this, and that's their rodeo.
Right.
None of that exists in the outpatient model. Who you go to, you become their territory pretty much.
Mhm.
And they'll try
Mhm.
to create everything they possibly can until they just can't anymore. And then they'll send you to somebody else, you know, but they won't talk to that person. Like you lose that. So it's like
Yeah.
in the outpatient world, we are setting up people unknowingly, ignorantly, we're setting
Mhm.
them up for failure.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's the, you know,
Well,
and that's a really sad part of it.
yeah, but
Yeah.
that's where I go back to. Well, I forgot. I remember my number one. Um, you were talking about, just what is considered life, which is death, pain, hunger, all different things. How many truly, how many people have seen a dead body that wasn't related to them in a casket in a funeral home? My my first time seeing a dead body out of that environment was in my job. I'd never
Mhm.
I'd never seen a dead person laying in a ditch or anything. I,
Mhm.
I I had no idea what that would be like, and
Right.
you go from that being a shock to becoming normal,
Yeah.
and
Well,
to all of a sudden, and I'm lucky. I have a very I know why the one car uh, accident got me, because I related it to my oldest daughter. But who teaches you how to look at that person in the ditch? It takes a certain kind of person to be able to look at that person
Yeah.
and go ahead and do their job and process that scene, because they
Mhm.
got to go to the next call.
Right.
And I don't think people get that. I don't think. I think we live in such a sheltered, bubbled world that if it shocks the conscience, we just don't shock it. We just don't think about it. Well, when you're in a job where you don't have an option, then it's a great point on what you said, Katie. You get X amount of hours training when you're going to be a nurse or a heart you only get so. There's too much to know in the field that you're going into to where you
Yeah.
can even venture over into the mental health side. Well,
Mhm.
they trained us how to deal with a family, that with a person suffering with mental health. They didn't train us how to deal with ourselves.
that's
Mhm.
right.
you,
And
you,
that,
you,
right.
you know.
And that's a big piece, Dave, is, like me personally, like one of my stories, and I know, right? I know that this is like, oh, hold on. That's kind of a sensitive box for Katie that I'm aware of, but like, because Carla, my brother got killed when I was 14, motocross accident.
Mhm.
And I've been around like all of it. I've actually worked in the room that he died in, right? Different things. Like I face all these things head on. This is what I
Yes.
do in life. But when I'm around, we donated his organs. And when I'm around organ donations, which I did quite a bit with anesthesia,
Uh-huh.
I
Uh-huh.
just recognize like,
Yeah.
all right, this is one of my, especially pediatric organ donations. Like I recognize
Right.
this is one of my things to where
Mhm.
I can still do it, but I need to be careful with myself because it's a fragile topic and rightfully so. So it's
Exactly.
almost like my brain, like it's like here's Katie and here's her brain. And I
Right.
recognize like if I see little things like this, like okay, like just be aware that
Yes.
it may happen more easily with this just because I've had a personal experience
Right.
with it and it knocked me off, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And if we could get in, Dave, like exactly what you just said, if we could get these things in to where it's like, if it's something like when we go through a situation, what you're talking about, Dave, with the accident and relating it to your daughter, like, absolutely, the brain can't differentiate what's real and what's not real. Sometimes we have to train it to understand this, and if it's more powerful enough, it becomes real in our abstract thought, and we can't let it go because the brain's
Mhm.
like, well, what if, and it's called catastrophic thinking, and that's a trauma sign. So we
Mhm.
go to, and when you say control, Carla,
Mhm.
we go to the worst of the worst of the worst
Mhm.
because what we're trying to do is we're trying to control the narrative. So when
Mhm.
we start going to
Absolutely.
that darkness, we're
Mhm.
trying to think of everything possibly that could go wrong in
Mhm.
order to protect ourselves. And then that way, when it doesn't happen, we can
Mhm.
say, well, see, I told you it wouldn't be that bad. We feel better that we controlled our narrative. But what happens is our brain starts living in that hell because it
Yes.
doesn't want to get caught off guard again. And we just
Right.
start living in the darkness, and that darkness becomes our safety. And
Mhm.
that's what we have to break, is because the brain
Exactly.
will go there. That person will go there. If we can break that and say, you know what? That was a one off. And I
Mhm.
don't do it as much now as I used to, but when I would go to like catastrophic thinking, I would Google
Mhm.
what's the percentage today that there's going to be a shooting at a local school? And it's
Yeah.
like 0.001%. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
quantitative to where you're fine, super low risk.
Right.
It can happen, sure. Anything can happen at any given day. But if we
Right.
don't have those guardrails with
Mhm.
our brain will go wherever it wants. It's like, and I tell people it's like a baby narcissist. It
Yeah.
wants to do everything that it thinks it needs to do, but everything that it does is not always right. And
Yeah.
consciously, we need to be aware of, okay, my subconscious is doing this. While
Yeah.
it's doing this, I'm not going to necessarily agree with it, but we're going to
Yeah.
figure out how to get this conscious mind and this subconscious mind. They're going to learn how to work together.
Right. Right. And I think if more people would think out of the box, so to speak, like I did, um, they would realize, like, okay, this is not what you traditionally are going to think of when you think of medication or therapy or whatever. But like Dave said, you know, if it works, then, you know, it,
That's
I
all that
just,
matters.
it is. It's all that matters. I
That's
mean,
right. It
we
is.
have to do for our little brains and our little hearts. I mean, think about it. They're two small organs, but man, they're huge. They're
Hmm.
huge. The
And we don't
mental
Oh,
health,
respect him. We've got to
I mean,
respect him. Like we look at each
yeah,
other like we're ill. It's not ill.
yeah,
The system is not weak when we're struggling with mental health. If
mhm,
anything, it's arcing. Like it's
yes,
overpowering the system, which is
yes,
causing these physical symptoms that we
mhm,
see, physical signs that we see. It's causing us to overutilize all of our energy. And that's not illness, that's malfunction. So if we can start
yes,
looking at mental health as a
yes,
like, hey, we're off base instead of we're
mhm,
ill, because we look at illness as weakness. And when people
yeah,
struggle with their mental health, It's not a
Mhm.
weakness. It's
No,
off track.
it is. That's such a good way of putting it because before I was diagnosed bipolar in '04, I was always like scared of people who were going through it, such as my grandmother. And then later on in life, a friend. I was so scared of it. But then when it was happening to me, it was like, holy cow, you know. And what people need to remember is none of us are immune. None of us are immune. So we can all be affected. You know, you could take the happiest, healthiest person walking down the street, but something catastrophic could happen to them overnight to where the next day they need some kind of help. And, you know, I wish the world would stop being so judgy. And I wish that the government would start looking more outside the box. If it is helping someone, and I know of two people for sure. I mean, I'm looking at one of them right now, and the other one is my pride and joy. I mean, those two people right there, I can attest to like, wow, just wow. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Uh, I, I, uh, I, like I, I, I went to that place, that wreck a minute ago, and my first instinct was to shut this computer down.
Hmm.
Um, but that doesn't do any good. Talking gives me time to catch up. But I Here's the thing about it, man. Katie, Katie has like a gazillion times more than me, but uh, man, people have belittled both of us and everything. I don't care. I don't care what somebody thinks about me taking
Hmm.
ketamine or wanting to get at least mushrooms legalized in a medical setting for treatments and stuff. I don't care because I don't need any more friends. I really don't. What I need to do is live every day,
Hmm.
and when that's needs to be done by a non-traditional medicine,
Yeah.
then I'm I don't care. I
Right.
don't give two rats ass. I want the same opportunity to live a normal, healthy life like everybody else.
Absolutely. And you deserve that. We all deserve that.
Everybody does, yes.
We all do, but I've always felt such a special place in my heart for law enforcement. This was when I was growing up. This is before I even thought about having a child because you all you all rock in my book. You rock. You're angels walking around every day and you guys rock in my book.
You know, and I was thinking about this earlier, Carla, like when you have kids and they're little and they want to dress up, right?
Mhm.
It's like we're
Mhm.
dressing them up as police officers and firemen and nurses and
Yes.
physicians and
Yeah.
all these people that are out there that are public servants. And
Yes.
now they all have some of the highest suicide rates. Like we're all like, "Oh, it's so cute from a
Yes.
police officer to firefighter." And
Yes.
it's like they're killing themselves right and left. I mean, it's the same way as the military. Like
Yes.
we'll dress them up as little tiny, a little military guy
Soldiers.
too.
Yes.
Soldiers,
Yes.
that's right. And
Yes.
we're dressing up our children to
Yes.
populations that we love the most that have the highest acuity right now of
Mhm.
destroying themselves because of these professions in being a public servant. And that's
And
what
And
people
what's
don't
being
get.
done about it? What's being done about it?
Right.
There needs to be
first
more
of
done
all,
about
it's not being reported accurately, but because if you have a brother or sister in law enforcement that takes their life, you're going to try every way in the world to not put that out there, to not give them shame. There's no shame in it.
Mm-mm.
Well, what we need to start doing is focusing on why they did, not trying to hide why they did. Focus
Yes,
on why they did and talk about it so the next one doesn't do it.
exactly.
Well, and if we change the
Exactly.
narrative too, instead of saying illness, which I hate, I don't know if you've ever noticed it, Dave. I never say mental illness. I hate that terminology.
Mental health. I've always said mental health for the
I
most part.
I I
I
I
try to.
disagree. I think it is an illness because I think a cold is an illness. I think the flu is an illness. I think cancer is
But
an
it's a
illness.
but it's a but
This,
it's a weakness. Illness is a weakness. I
but
think if
but
we could
but illness is
reframe,
something you can't control.
but if we
I
Right.
could
can't.
reframe it to where my brain is over functioning right now, or my brain is overdoing something. Like that's the thing with mental health, Dave. So as medical providers, when we look at people who are struggling with mental health, we look at them like they have no more energy. Like there's
Hey,
I
I
nothing
I
think
going on in their
Dave.
brain.
I get that, but okay, here. I'm sorry, you're going to have to put up with this just for a second, Carla, because
Oh,
it's
it's
fixing to
okay.
be the Dave and Katie round one. Um,
Okay.
Game on.
I think for me, um, I call it an illness because I want it to be accepted that it is an illness and that
It's a disability.
no, it's
It is.
not a disability because I hate that word because that was the only option anyone was giving me to be able to get my retirement and my
It's a file
insurance
disability.
was
Yeah.
to file for disability. I wasn't disabled. I wasn't able to do that job that I had given 26 years to
You weren't
anymore, but
physically disabled, but you were
I
mentally
yeah,
disabled.
but I still wanted to be given an opportunity to
Hmm.
be a a a a a whatever to life. I wanted to be able to help society. I wanted to be a contributor, and their option was telling me to sit on my ass and draw a check every
Oh,
month,
that
and
is true. You know
that
that,
I couldn't
Carla?
go to work.
So there's a
And
difference.
I wanted to work. I wanted to feel like I wanted to have self worth, and they were trying to take it away from me. And in the
Yes.
process of a government, a state, and a federal government not willing to accept that this is a work related injury. It's not an
Yes.
inherent
Yes.
risk. Then
An injury,
let me
Dave.
feel like I'm trying to help this world still, that I'm trying to be a part of the success of
Yes.
the United States.
If we said mental health injury, Dave, I would go with that all day long. Because what you just said, like you like
It is an
illness,
injury.
it is an
Yeah.
injury, absolutely. And you can heal from
Yeah.
that injury, but you've got something going on that's disabling you right now, not overall. So listen to this, Carla, and I know this from Dave. Um, okay, veterans, when veterans become disabled,
Hmm.
the federal government pays for veterans a check for their disability, but they're able to
Right.
go work, right? They can
Right.
still work.
Yeah.
What Dave's so frustrated about, and rightfully so, if he were to have gotten disability as a police officer, he was never
Hmm.
going to be able to work again.
I was not allowed to work any
And if
hours
you want to talk about
legally,
discrimination,
legally,
that's
legally.
discrimination right there. If you're going to give a
After
veteran
he gave all
disability
of
and
those
allow them to
years.
work, give him disability, allow him to work, right? But in
Yeah.
that crap,
Exactly.
so when he's saying, I want to contribute to life, so here Dave had to choose
Hmm.
not to apply for disability because he still wanted to contribute and they were trying to
Yes.
take that away from him, which is absolute crap. So,
Absolutely. I
Dave,
agree with that.
I will
Uh,
respect your decision to say mental illness. I still will not agree with it, but I will agree with mental health injury.
Hey, can I say one thing really quick because this ties into what y'all are saying. I try to find good out of every bad thing. I formerly wanted to be a psychologist. I took lots of classes, just never got around to graduating. But I will say this, as a person who had mental illness, mental um, illness, I'm going to say it just for a second, Katie, illness running rampant on my mom's side of the family She was one of 8. Her mother and all of her sisters, unfortunately, by the grace of God, my mom did not have to go through that. Um, I feel like, speaking for myself, when I was diagnosed bipolar, yes, that was a mental illness. However, the positive side is, for example, with the ketamine, yeah, I recognize that I have something going on in my brain and my body that's not quite right. So I'm focusing on my mental health. I'm choosing to, from this day forward, focus on my mental health. For example, when someone walks into Revitalist or someone starts therapy or whatever the case may be, I have a mental illness, but from this day forward, it won't define me because I'm working towards my mental health. And then that be the long term goal. I mean, I agree with both of you. Yes, it starts out as an illness, but by golly, I'm grabbing it, taking a hold of it, working on me, and I'm working on my mental health. But I agree with both of you, but coming from
She's
a
such a good mom.
family of women full of mental illness. Yes, I see that. But that is what it's been all these years. So here again, it goes back to, if people would start thinking outside of the box, if the government would start thinking outside of the box, look at all the people that could be helped and look at all the people that wouldn't suffer and that could be saved. I mean, he's right. There's not, you don't hear stories on the news of this law enforcement officer committed suicide today. You don't hear that. You hear about the crime and all the bad things that happened overnight, but
Right.
they're not going to say when something like that happened,
Mhm.
because then they're going to be looked at. Well, what did you do to try to help that individual? What are they going to say then? What are they
Right.
going to say?
Well, they didn't, right?
I, I, I'm I'm going to say this, and then I'm not going to talk anymore. But uh, I walked away from a job to live to live, and I lost my insurance. I lost my retirement, and the thing that kept me alive, it's not it's not even covered by insurance, and it wouldn't have mattered because I lost my insurance. And when's the last time you saw a commercial um, talking about getting first responders assistance? When somebody puts a social post up that a veteran is struggling from a mental standpoint and lost their house and they're homeless, the first comment you get is, "We got to help this person. There should be no veteran homeless." Um, when's the last time? When's the last time you seen an organization on TV preaching not only no one should be homeless unless it's their choice, but when all the last big thing you see on TV about law enforcement is everybody wanting to defund them. You know, where's the
There's got to
sympathy
be a
at?
change.
Where,
There's got to
where's
be a
this?
change.
Where's the sympathy at for these people that go to while you're sleeping at night? They're out dealing with the devil so that
Yeah.
you can sleep peacefully and safely.
Yeah.
Where's that help at?
And
You're not
Dave,
wrong.
Yeah,
like
And we
veterans,
attack them. Like, that's
yeah,
what we've done previously. We've
that
attacked our
that's
first
all
yeah,
responders.
yes.
we yes. The and first of all, veterans military got attacked forever.
Hmm.
I mean, you take the
Yes.
Vietnam War stuff. Listen, these people didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
They were either drafted or they felt an obligation to go
Mhm.
and do what was considered prideful.
Mhm.
Um, I don't. I question every day why I went into this job because it's the most thankless. It was the one of the lowest paying things I could have ever done in my life,
Mhm.
and for everything that you did that you felt proud of because you helped somebody, whether it was change somebody's tire or go and just check on them and let them know, hey, I know you're here. I know you live here. I'll check on you, or stop and finish mowing the yard because you see them just physically exhausted and over sweating. We never asked for things. All I ever asked for was respect.
Yeah.
And
Well,
not
and
only
that's
did not only did my state not respect me, but my government didn't respect me.
I'm
yeah.
so sorry.
Oh, don't, I'm just one of ungodly how many people
You're
across the
not
United
wrong.
States.
Because
Yeah,
you would, I mean, Carla, your son, police officer, you like you don't
Mhm.
even know these things being a parent, right? And here Dave worked
Yeah.
26 years in law enforcement
I
and
know.
he had to walk away
and
as
I
he has
thought
a
I had
family,
it
as he has two
beat.
children, as he has all of these things, and it goes
Mhm.
completely unnoticed, you know,
Mhm.
and it's sad because, you know, and it's us, right? We have to accept this from a civilian population. It's us that's contributing to this. So these people who want to defund the police, blah, blah, blah,
Mhm.
maybe the police officers are getting there because they're seeing too many things that are knocking them off and they're trying to do the best they can do. And if they become abusive, if they have angry outbursts, if they become
Yeah.
alcoholics, all these other
Mhm.
things, it's
Mhm.
because they're struggling and we're
Mhm.
not doing things to help support them to keep them healthy. And
Exactly.
there are public they're who we call in the middle of the night when we're scared or whatever else, but it's us. We're
Mhm.
creating this and then we want to
Mhm.
defund them. It's like, no, no. It's almost like
No.
taking the guns away from people. No. Help support them so they don't go down this path. And right
Absolutely.
now, we're seeing them all kill themselves, right? They're
Mhm.
either alcoholics, abusive, or they're suicidal. And it's
Mhm.
because what they just said, we don't have the systems to support them. And we know for
Mhm.
a fact, right, that there's a lot of cities and counties that
Mhm.
have the ability. We have the whole plan here to have police officers insurance to cover ketamine, and it's literally sitting on people's desks for
Yeah.
almost a year now, to where we
Mhm.
know that we're losing police officers
Mhm.
probably
They don't
every
care.
day in the country.
Oh, yeah, for
They don't.
sure. Every
They
day.
It's
don't
not that they
care.
don't care, Dave.
No, it's
They're 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 not.
no, they don't care. They don't have respect for that job. Um, but because it since I was a little boy, all you've ever heard is you cops are a dime a dozen because you can pay anybody any amount. They just want to carry a gun. Oh, that's I
No,
mean,
I can I that's crazy.
the
Sorry.
Greenville Police Department,
Ridiculous.
by me having to leave early.
Mhm.
Do you know how much money they lost in training? And I worked two dogs. They lost they lost experience that they can never get back because I'm telling you right now, most of your younger officers they're not staying in it.
Yeah.
There's just
Why would they?
it's
They're not getting any support, right? And they're like, all right, so you're asking me to sacrifice everything for these people that I don't know, but yet
Mhm.
you're not going to pay me anything and you're not going to support me in any way. And you're not going to give me any type of insight as to how I should grow into this
Mhm.
lifelong career of protection. You're just going to be like, oh,
Mhm.
sorry, you're on your own. Good luck. Don't talk about it.
yeah, and they're going to cut you off so that you don't cost them any more money.
It's
You
so messed
know, uh, 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 they had an option of allowing me to pay my insurance like if I had retired. They had that option, but you know what was cheaper? Just to cut me off. because then I wasn't one more that they were having to pay any amount on.
And if I could say this, Dave, a veteran will give their life for their country. But guess what?
100%.
A police officer, day after day after day after day, they will give their life for their community. One
Right.
gives for their country, one gives for the community that they're serving and protecting. They're both servants, they're both protectors. If we're doing great things for our veterans, we've got to start now. I mean, we should have started years ago when we had these ads on TV for, these homeless veterans, and we're going to do this and da 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 da. Listen, I am the daughter of two Air Force veterans, my mom and dad. However, it's great. I'm so glad they're doing things for veterans. But what are you doing for our other protectors and servants that are
Listen,
daily protecting your
I,
family and my family? What are you doing for
I,
them?
I will say this till the day I die. I do not know how someone that's a paramedic, I don't know how they do it. Because the thankful thing about a firefighter or a nurse, a doctor, or a police officer, we don't go to every call.
Hmm.
They go to every call. If it's a bad fire, they go to that call. If
Yeah,
if it's a shooting, they go to that call.
right.
If it's a shooting and they're DOA or they're 10-7 on scene, they go
Hmm.
to the morgue.
Yeah,
So a doctor doesn't have to see him or the nurse doesn't have to see him.
right.
Who has to see him? That EMS personnel.
Yeah,
I do not I do not know how they function. They're
no,
my heroes.
yeah,
They're my heroes. They're one of my triggers, but at the same time, they're one of my heroes.
absolutely.
That's so sad, ain't it? Katie, we've
It
talked
is.
about it. We've talked about it though. I see 99% of everything they do is nothing but service for the public.
Absolutely.
But one incident, and this is where we go back to, Katie, is your brain is so strong, and when it leans, when it's not connected right,
You have to respect it, man.
it's still strong. It's just strong on the wrong side.
That's right. And I think I understand your view. I think Carla understands both of our views, but I understand your view with the illness piece. But I'll tell you, when you say illness to a medical provider, we're looking at you like you have a weakness. And we're treating mental health as a weakness. Mental health is not a weakness. If anything,
Yes, it is.
no, it's not. If
Is
anything,
cancer a weakness?
what?
Is cancer something they can't control? Is
The
cancer a
cancer,
weakness?
hold
No,
on.
no, 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 no. Is cancer a weakness?
Yes.
I want my mental health to be respected and acknowledged like cancer, because I damn well didn't ask for this, just like they
No,
didn't ask for
you're
cancer.
not hearing me. You're not
No,
listening. You need to
and I'm
turn on
not
your
going
listening.
to.
Yes, you are. So listen,
I got them up.
weakness, Dave, as a medical provider, when we look at a weakness, we're looking at you're fatigued, you don't have enough energy to get out of bed, you don't have energy to where I need to give you stimulants to give you more energy. Like when you say that to a medical provider as an illness, we're looking at you like you're only functioning about 10% because everything's kind of weak right now and we need to support your function to make you stronger. What I'm trying to say here with this illness piece, when you say it to medical providers, we look at you like you're weak. You're not weak.
That's
Your
your fault.
brain is off track and it's
That's your fault.
trying to overcompensate.
You need to be trained different.
The medical
You're looking at
providers.
it. Yes,
That's
yes,
what I'm
because
saying. That's right.
it is an illness. It's not a weakness. But at the same time, yes, I'm weak. I couldn't go out of my bedroom. Yes, I couldn't walk out my front
But
door
you weren't.
because of my emotions. But yeah, I was weak, Katie, because
But
I
you
was ready
weren't.
to kill myself. I,
That's
w-
right. Because
I had
you
given
were
up. I had given up. I was too tired to fight.
but you were hypersensitive. You weren't hyposensitive. So when people are struggling
I
with
don't know what you mean by that.
when people are struggling with mental health, it can be either way. It can be that things are not functioning at all, or it can be more so that things are so over functioning that the system's getting ready to overload itself. And as medical providers, we do not look at people who are struggling with their mental health expecting that they can't turn off a thought, that everything, their body feels like it's vibrating, that they're shaking everywhere. Like, we don't look at people like they have too much energy when they're struggling with mental health. We look at them like they don't have enough energy and we need to give them something to make them feel better. Does that make
Because
sense
they're
what I'm
ill,
trying to
though.
say?
Because they're ill. They're ill.
Right, but it's like it's
If the state of Tennessee had looked at my mental illness and acknowledged it was an illness and not an inherent risk, I I I I I would have had a chance. I would have got paid to try to get better and maybe stay in that job. But they don't look at it as an illness. It's an inherent risk.
well,
And
they look
until
at
they
it as a
look at it
risk.
as an illness and they treat it like other illnesses and do funding for it and be willing to do experimental treatments and stuff and try to help me live, then you're gonna have first responders, you're gonna have veterans kill themselves every day
Right.
because they weren't they weren't given an opportunity or given the training to to see and deal with things that we're not meant to see.
Right. And I think if we could go into it from a standpoint to say, when things happen, if your brain gets knocked off track, then that can be considered whatever we want to call it, illness, injury, disability, whatever. But I'm just telling you, medical providers do not look at mental health illness as an over functioning that people can't control.
Well, they're wrong.
I know they're wrong, but that's what I'm trying to tell you. And that's the
Well,
gap
so
that
why should I
once
change my word? Why should I change my word when I'm right? Because I'm telling you, the only time you get help is when it's considered an illness, not a weakness. And as long as the medical profession is not willing to live off of the past 150 years of thinking and wake up and go, "Hey, we're in friggin' 2000s. We're
you
in
know
a
what it
new
is.
we're in a new world, and we're tired of people killing themselves because of this illness, not because of this weakness."
And you know what it is, Dave? We, as medical providers, they'll look at illness as a weakness. They look at a disease as overproduction. So if you have a condition that to where you're making too many red blood cells, we won't say that's necessarily an illness. We'll say that's a type of disease that someone has.
I, and I, and I get that, but
Yep.
what is my what did 26 years in law enforcement? What what did I start making that caused me to want to kill myself? I didn't make a damn thing. I repressed everything out of my mind so that I could function and go to the next call, and it finally caught me. I said when I hit 20 years, I told my wife, "I've got it made. I've got it." And you know what? The last damn thing I thought would ever happen is me walk away from this job because of my mental health, my mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
You probably thought you might perish in the line of
Would have
duty.
been the best thing could have happened because then my family would have been taken care of instead of what they're having to go through
And
now.
it's funny, Carla, you say that because there's a lot of veterans that I've spoken with that have been deployed multiple times, and that's their exit strategy is
That's a
go in
goal.
line of
Yeah,
duty. It's easier.
That's their goal because one, then they are recognized as um, a servant, as someone that laid their life on the line to protect us. You know, that's awesome. That you cannot die more honorable that, in my opinion, than you can to die saving someone else's life. That I think that's the ultimate sacrifice. And there's only certain people in this world willing to do that. And those people aren't getting recognized for it. They're being forgotten about.
You know what? There's a term, medical term called acquired. So if you say that it's like an acquired illness, it's an acquired injury, like Dave, like that. So what acquired means in that context is when you're exposed to something over time, like it can become acquired. So like say if I'm around a lot of granite and I get
Oh, say you're a coal miner.
that's right. That would be an
Yeah, black
acquired.
lung.
That's right.
Yes.
It would be an acquired illness due to
And,
environmental
and
factors.
guess who covers it?
Federal.
Insurance.
Oh, so
Insurance.
that would be interesting if we could say because it's something that you acquire. It has nothing to do with your genetics.
Right.
But it would be like this is an either and actually I was looking this up there.
Does it matter if it includes your genetics? Because I mean, aren't they slowly in
Typically
research showing that it can
right.
be
It can't, yeah. I
hereditary?
mean, some people are more prone, one reason or another. We don't know yet. We're
Yes,
trying to figure those things out, but more so acquired. Yeah, so acquired could be from your genetic aspects, but it just means that you didn't have it at birth. It's not
right.
congenital, it's
Right.
acquired. So to say that police officers, firefighters, public servants may be in environments to where they may receive acquired injuries or acquired illnesses, like that would be better terminology instead of saying, "Oh, it's just a risk of your job." Because I know Carla, the government. I guess you maybe correct me with this. I know they changed it for firefighters. They've not changed it for police
That's
officers,
it.
which is
And
hilarious.
even at that, it's optional. The county or the city has to apply for a grant to fund that. So if that department just doesn't have time to fool with it, or maybe they're not the best employee, and part of the reason why is because of their mental illness, then they don't have
Acquired,
to do it. They're not
acquired.
forced to do it. So it's optional. It should be
So,
mandatory.
Mhm.
so Carla, so you know the state of Tennessee how proactive. So police officers, and I can be
Mhm.
corrected, but police officers, the last time I looked, the only time that they can say that they have PTSD is if they were shot on the
Yes,
job while they're on the
car
call.
wreck, car wreck. Yeah, something that gives them a physical injury.
You are
A
kidding.
physical.
That's
No,
it. That's
one
all.
hundred percent
So never mind what it does to their
does not
brain.
matter.
It has to be a
That is
physical
such
injury
a
while
Only if
you're
they're
on the clock.
shot or
but
wrecked.
but
Yeah, or
but
assaulted
they
or assaulted.
but you guys have to use your brain in order to decide what you're going to do on a call. I mean, we have to use our brain every single day.
It's
But
Carla, it's people that are in the wrong positions that think they're doing the right thing and they're idiots.
It's
Um,
people that's not affected by it or hasn't had a family member,
they have
and
no insight.
until
It'd
that
be like
happens, they live in their bubble.
it'd be like me like trying to tell the government in Nepal what to do. Like it makes no sense. There are no connections. They did not bring in the experts. They didn't care enough to do this. Like it's it's sad. I mean, it's really sad. But
But
there is
where
a new law in the state of
Mhm.
Tennessee that came into effect at the beginning of 2024 for firefighters, talking about PTSD with firefighters. But I did, Dave, talk to Senator Briggs and about that piece, and he's like, "Yeah, we approved it just for firefighters because it was the firefighters association that came in, but we'll have to get it approved for police officers too." And
I'm
it's like,
sorry,
what?
where's common sense? Where is friggin' common sense? Who you tell me the governor of this state, and I don't like you, Mr. Governor, because of you're a liar, but you tell me where he can't sit down and you put this in front of his face And he can go, that is the worst kind of thinking. How can we think like this? It's
I mean, I
common
laugh
sense.
because it's so ridiculous. And if people like think that
Yes, it's
it's
embarrassing,
actually
is it
good,
not?
it's like, where are you? Where are you? What are you thinking right now? Like all of you are idiots who, if you
Mhm.
can't see what's
It's the
going
most
on,
embarrassing thing.
but
Who are
well,
the 3 people that go on a call? A police officer,
right.
a firefighter, and a paramedic.
Yep.
If you're
Listen,
gonna do it for
but
one, you need to do it for all.
Yep.
it should be for all first responders,
Yes.
including nurses, including doctors. I don't care if a doctor makes $300,000 a year. You
Yep.
know what?
Yep.
When he gets in a mental crisis, he loses the opportunity to earn those wages.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He may be able to come back. He may not be able to. But
You
you
know,
know
and it's
what? When you yank away from me, the only thing I've done for 26 years, the only I came out into the real world with when I put on an application. Well, what'd you do? Well, I worked at Kentucky Fried Chicken when I was 16 years old because that was the first time I was allowed to get a job. And then I worked at Lowe's a little bit while I couldn't figure out that I just didn't want to be in school. And then my job was law enforcement for 26 years. I have no other job skill. That was the only skill I had, and I was good at it. And that got taken away from me, and everything that is associated with that, which was health insurance, with
it's
retirement,
your identity.
which
They
was
took your identity away.
which was a belonging, which was contributing to society. And you know what, Katie? Honestly, you could answer this. How many people cared? How many cared that I had to leave? Less than 50. Less than 50. And you know, the thing is, I'm sorry. The town of Greenville lost somebody that was willing to die for somebody that they didn't even know, because that was their job. I swore to protect and serve my community, and I was going to do that until I died. And it didn't matter what the call was. That was my job, and I
It was
did
your
it.
calling.
And
It
and
was.
yes, I say it's the same thing as a preacher. You know, a preacher's underappreciated.
A
But
school
it's their
teacher.
calling. That's what they're meant to do. That's what they're meant to do.
Well, and anything that you're describing right now, Dave, everything that you're describing, like it's a beautiful, beautiful case for a lawsuit for discrimination. I mean, like, because everything that you're saying is
I, I'm sure I could have sued my city and won very easily,
right,
it, but because there was other issues too. But you know what? I didn't
but
feel
not
like my
only that
city
though, it's
done.
the state, it's the federal
But yeah,
statute.
yeah, but like with me, I didn't feel like the city did anything wrong with me. They one. I didn't recognize it. I didn't go ask for help. And then when this happened, they did try. But they were in a new world too. Okay, we've got a cop here that has got PTSD. Well, Chief Cannon, hey, can he even carry a gun? You know, if he gets labeled with a mental illness, can he carry a gun? Well, we're going to have to call the state and see. Oh, whew, thank goodness they finally passed it where you still could. You know, great, but I don't blame the city. I blame the city for not caring enough about me when I had to walk away to live, to still continue. They had an opportunity to still help me get a start in this new world by at least eliminating the insurance issue for a little bit. You
Mhm.
know, until I could get another job. You know, they could have said, listen, if you're hell bent on working and contributing to society, we are going to back you 100%, and we will let you pay
And
for
why
your
would you not do
insurance.
that?
And
Mhm.
we'll let you pay for your insurance until you can get a job that provides insurance. And you know what? I would have said thank you. And as soon as I got my job that I got now, that I would have dropped my insurance with them. I would have said thank you for giving thank you for taking one thing out of my plate that I didn't have to worry about,
Well,
which was
and think
health
about it,
insurance.
Carla. think about all the officers, firefighters that are out there who don't have Dave's drive. I mean, like,
Mhm.
yes, he gets
Yeah.
tired sometimes. Yes, he wants to complain a lot of times, but by golly, he's fighting for every one of them out there because
I
he
don't
Absolutely.
knows
want them
what
to
it
be
feels
me.
like and he doesn't want them to go down that same hellacious path that he went down.
Mhm.
And that's what we have to realize, and we have to support those. Like, anybody who's a public servant
Mhm.
should be a special population that we support,
Mhm. Absolutely.
and
It
we
should be
don't.
like the veterans. I mean, it
Yeah,
should be like equal treatment that the veterans
with
have.
public servants,
It,
period.
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, kid, Saturday night I was done. I was done, and I just need somebody to give me a reason not to be. I, Most people don't have that.
You're
They
right.
don't have that. They don't have that person that they're not related to, that they didn't know from childhood. They don't have that person. You you choose to keep me alive because you want to, not because you have to or you feel obligated to. And there's not a lot of people out there
Well, I
that
think
if they're not related, they don't fight for you.
Mhm.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's a piece of it, right? Is like, what about all the people that are sitting there that don't know the next steps to take and they don't have the support people, and it's an injustice, right, to these people.
Well,
So
it'd be an injustice for me to be sitting here alive today and not be willing to say that I went to revivalist and got treatments to allow me to let my brain reset. And did I have to do it more than one time? Yeah. Will I maybe have to do it a booster the rest of my life? Probably. But you know what? It's that booster does more than just mess with my brain. It has other benefits to it. It's not like it's a terrible thing, because it's used in a medical setting. It's not a being used. I can't get addicted to something that I get a very small dosage of, and
you
I'm
don't
my
have easy
mindset is
access to it.
well, and my mindset's not to party. My mindset is to breathe. But if we don't have people like me or like Carla that's willing to talk about how it affected her life also, not only her son's but her life. If we don't have people willing to share that, not be embarrassed, be proud of it, then there's so many people out there who's never going to know what revivalist is. They're never going to know about ketamine. They're never going to know about, hey, let's fight to get psychedelic medication approved to be used in a medical environment to treat things.
Mhm.
And I'm sorry, I damn well will get hooked on mushrooms if that makes it to where if I don't need to call Katie or text Katie and say, "Do you have a minute on a Saturday night?" Because I don't want to live anymore. I I it's this world's a joke because nobody wants their conscience shot. They'd rather live in their bubble, and then living in your bubble is just going to cause people to die.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
And I
Carla, I don't
think
know if you
another thing that goes along with that, Dave, is until you've walked a mile in someone else's shoes, you just don't know. You just don't get it. You never will. So,
and I
in the
think
meantime, let me do my ketamine, or let me do, in your case, you said you're also open to the mushrooms. Let me do whatever it takes
I'm
to
not hurting
be able to
anybody.
be
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Hey, you know what? If you don't want mushrooms to be approved, that's fine. You don't have to take them. You don't have to be around them. Give me an opportunity to go to Revivalist where it's locked up, can't get into it, and let
Mhm.
them treat me for it.
Mhm. Mhm.
and I think that's the piece, Dave, that I see a lot of people. I was talking about this earlier today. Um, you've got like people that are pushing the politics, right? Because they want the laws to change. And then you got the people that have nonprofits that want to support people. But you also have the people who say, what can we do to help this person? So there's so many people out there when they see, like what you said, Carla, walking in somebody's shoes, when they see these people struggling, that's when it makes it real. What can we do to help? But as soon as they're out of that mindset, they're
Mhm.
As soon
outside
as
that
they're
mind, right?
better.
Yes.
But what we see at Revitalist is we do see the people who come in who are so overstimulated a lot of times
Yes.
to where I say,
Mhm.
can you even hear what I'm saying right now? And they're like, no. I'm like, all right, I get it.
Yeah.
Or the
You know,
people who,
I can't now. You know that, Katie. I'm in my own world now. I'm one track.
yeah, yeah. And that's, and that's the thing about it is like, it's a maladaptation is what the brain's doing to where it goes into survival mode, and it's done that in the past and it's going to do it again. And that's what, when you see people, it's like they can be all over the spectrum. They can be, I've not slept in 5 days, or they can be, I have slept for 5 days and I can't get out of bed. It's like when that brain starts malfunctioning,
Mhm.
it goes to the polarities and it can either be really, really high or really, really low. And we don't know.
Mhm.
And there is a spectrum there, but that's the not disrespect, but maybe that's the disrespect I guess we give mental health in the medical field, is we don't look at it as an overarching spectrum. We look at it as, that depression's one way or anxiety's the other way. Like we don't look at it from a comprehensive lens. And that's what, we're trying to do here, is to say, like, there's so much more involved with this. Like, it is the heart, it is the brain. Like, this bad boy right here between our ears is our primary computer, and it's
Mhm.
controlling everything. And the last
Mhm.
thing we want to do is to pour water on this beautiful computer to try to cool it off.
Mhm.
Oh,
We
I don't
have
know.
to
I want
figure
to
out how
unplug it.
you rewire it.
I
What?
want to unplug it. I just want to unplug it.
Yeah, you want a break. You want a breath. That's what you want. Right. Yeah, and it
Yeah.
is. It's like a computer. It overheats and you just want to be like, just for a second, just stop. Just for a second.
Mhm.
And I'm telling you, in the medical world, they're not trained that way. And that's what sucks, Dave. And it sucks. And we're going to change this too. Like, we've got a long agenda ahead of us. But like in the mental health communities, they're all doing the best that they know how to do, but they're not seeing
There-
it every day to where with effective interventions like you, Carla, seeing with your son, you're like, oh my gosh, does this actually exist?
Mhm.
Wow, it does exist. You mean in one
Mhm.
day I can give my son the chance to take a breath to where he doesn't feel like he's in hell? Wow,
Mhm.
I didn't know that existed. And that's why
Mhm.
I like to say intervention with ketamine,
Mhm.
because everything in the mental health space is not an intervention. It's
Mhm.
management. This is a long-term condition. This is a chronic thing. And it's like, no, we can do an intervention and we can get that person back into the green zone. And their therapeutic level may be higher or lower, but we can get them back in the green zone. When they start
Mhm.
getting into the yellow zone or into the red zone, we can do an intervention and get them back to the green zone. And that's the
Yeah.
piece of it, is like we can retrain the mind. And we see
Mhm.
that now. And
Mhm.
that's something that 99% of the providers out there still do not think exists. But the brain
Mhm.
Yeah,
regenerates.
I don't get that because, um, like I'm in the red right now, but I'm not scared because you, I've been in the red enough, and I've gotten out of the red, and I, it's not automatic anymore that I need to go have a booster. I've conversations, you, you and I talking, me and Kate talking, it gave me tools to to pull myself out of that.
That's right.
Does it work every time? No, but it damn sure works more than what it did when I first started.
Hmm.
Um, and all I'll say is it is why would you not why would you not even consider giving me an opportunity to take some type of a hallucinogen or whatever because of your religious beliefs or whatever, why would you not
Mhm.
give me a chance to not automatically go, I don't want to
Mhm.
live. I, I'm tired of putting this burden on not only my family but me because it's pressure, pressure, pressure. I'm failing. I'm failing. I'm failing. You know what?
Mhm.
If I go to Revivalist and they have procured, I like that word, procured mushrooms through a legal, like through a trusted, safe um, business or whatever, and they have qualified nurse and everybody there to assist me with it. Why am I not allowed to have that chance to live and be more normal? Because
It goes back to
your religion doesn't allow it. Well, you know what? A mushroom comes out of the frigging ground. It's not
mhm,
manufactured in a lab. It's not made
mhm.
out of poisonous chemicals you buy at Walmart.
Yeah. And it goes back to, like you said, there are trained professionals there. I didn't know that there was going to be until Matthew told me.
Like, what do you mean
Um,
they're giving you horse tranquilizers?
Those
I
people at
know.
Revivalists,
I mean,
those people at Revivalists, when you're when I disassociate in a ketamine infusion,
mhm,
I am completely, I'm 100% vulnerable, and
mhm,
I have the utmost confidence that every one of those people in that building employed by Revivalists will die
mhm.
trying to keep me safe.
Yeah, yeah,
Period.
absolutely. And they
Right.
care.
So
They care
Well, it's
about
having your back.
you.
And that's what this whole company's about, is having everyone's
Yeah.
back that walks through those doors. So,
I Katie, this needs to be cut into two segments.
no, I'll
You
do one.
know,
It'll be fine. We'll do
you,
Joe Rogan. It's long. Joe Rogan's long. We got it, Dave.
yeah,
All right, we'll sum it up. We've had a lot of good, positive discussion. So, what would you
and we
say?
got to argue.
We did. Carla got to
Yeah,
see it real time, Carla. This is what we've been doing since 2019, 2018, 2018,
2018,
mind you.
2018.
Um, but what would you say, Carla? I mean, like, if you're a parent out there, if you're a kid with somebody who's struggling, right?
Mhm.
What advice would you have wanted to give to them that you would have liked
Um,
to?
well, what I would say is if you or a loved one are struggling with any type of something, like I think what I loved most as a parent was like once Matthew could breathe again, then I could
Mhm.
breathe again. And I didn't have to wait 6 to 8 weeks for something to take effect. Yes, he had 6 treatments over a 3 week time period, but I could breathe a little better after the first one. And then after the second one, Mama could sure breathe better. And after the third and the fourth and the fifth and the sixth. And then if there's any boosters that, he wants to take in the future, like I know my kid, when he's not sleeping, when he's not eating, when he's sad, like I was so thankful that it was a noticeable difference after the first one.
Yeah, right. And the stress, like, we know the statistics out there for caregivers. Caregivers die a lot of times before the person
Mhm.
that they care for. So we know
Mhm.
that there's significant stress on those loved ones because, it's you love them, but you don't know what to do to
Mhm.
help them. So once you
Yeah.
see that, and then you can start
Yeah.
kind of, supporting them better, then you're seeing
Yeah.
it too. You're seeing the goods, the bads, the uglies, but you're also
Yeah.
seeing the healing effects that can take place and the hope that's
Absolutely.
given.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And even on the drive home when he shared a little bit with me about, his session that day, like I could just tell this is a good thing. Like this is really helping him.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you just want to feel better. if you're one of the lucky few watching this who have never had to struggle with feeling really low or yucky or bad, then I'm so happy for you. But the majority of us at some time or another have to deal with something. And when it is your family member and there's something that's available, it's like, oh, thank
Mhm.
goodness.
Mhm.
Thank
Yeah.
goodness.
And I think
So,
that's a piece of it is we all just need to accept it's real. It's real. We all go through
yes,
struggles. We all have
yes,
symptoms of depression and anxiety and trauma or whatever else. The issue
yes,
is when we can't turn it off and it starts controlling our lives. And that's what
absolutely.
ketamine does is it gives us that ability to try to regain that empowerment in who we are.
Yes, for sure.
Dave, what
Yep.
would you like to say? What are your two tidbits?
I say this to anybody I talk to about mental health, and I always pride myself. I can read people extremely well, and I just need people to help us help people to not become me.
Hmm.
Well,
That's
not to
all at
become
once.
you, but not to live the hellacious path that you have lived. That's what we're trying to do. Is you're still actively being a public servant right now, is what you're doing. And you can't, Carla, he can't see this, but one day hopefully he will. He can't see, and it's probably going to be insulting, so sorry, Dave. But he can't see how much power he has right now because he knows what that darkness looks like and he is
Hmm.
fighting so hard for all these people out there so they don't have to live the life that he has been given.
Right.
And every day that he advocates for himself, he's
Yeah.
advocating for there's so many different people out there, and he
Yeah.
doesn't see his value and his importance in it. And that's why, as he knows, I'm running as fast as I can run so we can figure all this crap out so we can give people, better lives. And
Hmm.
Dave, we're going to start drawing blood on our tests next Wednesday for two of our
Well,
machines.
you should have plenty of mine stored up where I've had to pay for
Bloody
stuff
no,
with it.
bloody noses don't count. Uh,
Well,
but anyway, one day you'll see your worth,
well,
Dave.
hey, let me ask you this though. I've seen a couple of mental health places pop up recently in the Tri Cities area, but it's the same old mentality. It's the same old thinking.
Because we're freaking egocentric, Dave. We're so smart in the medical space, but we're so smart and we're so specialized in what we've been taught. A lot of times we can't even be like, oh no, there's no other view out there. There's a huge view out there, Dave. You know this. I lost my job, right, with anesthesia when I opened the clinic because I got the choice. Do you want to do real medicine or voodoo? And I chose voodoo because I knew the real science behind it. And what I knew and what's real, Dave, is data. And the data that we have trumps all of these random thought processes that make no sense. And that's the
But
goal,
but
right? That's the goal with
but
the lab too, is we get the data out there and we say, look, you are wrong. It does exist.
yeah, but I think I mean, in all honesty, one thing that hurts mental health, it's a silent killer.
100% it's a silent killer. But
Yeah.
people don't understand, Dave. They don't understand. They don't get it. They don't understand that mental health can be everywhere and
Hmm.
nowhere at the same.
Everybody's affected by mental health.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like no one. Everybody has a little bit of trauma. Everybody has a little bit of mental health issues. It's just some you go to hell with it, and some don't. Some for some reason
Well, nobody teaches
it
us how to deal with it, Dave. Out of sight, out of mind. Nobody's teaching us
absolutely.
all these different pieces. And that's what ketamine does too, is not only does it break it, it gives you that breath to where you can learn more effective coping mechanisms. So what you were saying earlier, I'm in the red zone right now. But previously, when you would go to the red zone, you would be like, oh crap. What if I
Oh,
can't
I
get
would
out
be,
of this?
I'd be stuttering, and
Right. But
I,
now you've been there
I
enough. You've seen it. You walked into the red enough to where you're like, oh, I've been here before. Yep. All right. Got it. It's going to suck, but I'll get myself out. Done it before. You know,
yeah,
where
I don't pick. Yeah, I don't make it worse by the fact that all of a sudden I start going. How am I going to afford to be able to pay for a booster? All this. I don't worry about that because I
but
know it's
used
going to take.
to, it was
Yeah, oh,
what
that's it. Consumed me.
consumed.
Yeah.
That's right.
Now I know that it's going to take a little more than this right here to put me in that spot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Resilience,
this.
Dave. Every time you get
Well,
ketamine, it's building your resilience because you're seeing more about yourself. You're understanding yourself more. You're understanding your patterns more. Because that's the beautiful thing about mental health. It just doesn't come out of nowhere. We think it does,
well, let,
but there's
I'll
patterns
be
that
right
see.
back, guys. Sorry. I'll be right back.
hey, look, hey, let me ask you this real quick because we focus just on the mental health aspect of ketamine, but I mean, in all honesty, if somebody came in, and I know it's I don't know if maybe the law doesn't allow it, whatever, but if somebody just took ketamine in a clinical environment, a medical environment, once every 3 months, there's no there there's no real danger in that. Like you do it for pain, you do it for it's not just for mental health.
Right.
It,
The goal is that
it,
you reset and you grow more.
yes.
Dave, we can do all this garbage like with mental health. Like we can do it over time, but we need more time and we need more space in order to grow. And when you're struggling with your mental health, you don't have time nor do you have space from the situation. And those are the two things that we need that ketamine gives us. So, where people mess up with ketamine is they'll take it too often because they just want to feel that relief. No, when you get in that space, it's giving us that breath to step back, gives us a little bit more time to where we can analyze things a little bit more. We can learn more effective coping mechanisms. And when we do that, we're building our base. So we're becoming more wise in all these patterns that once consumed us. We're able to see better.
Okay, let me ask
Greater
you this because
clarity.
I think this is
Two
this
minutes. 2 minutes,
this is
Dave.
okay. This is valid though. I've been around the clinic a lot and stuff, and um, I know you've had somebody there that originally it did what it was supposed to do, but as you said, they wanted to just stay in that moment. They wanted to keep getting that booster, and you don't allow that. You don't allow them just to keep coming in and getting a booster if it's not if you're able to determine that that's it's not necessary right now. Let your brain have time to heal from what you
Right.
just did this last time before we even talk about another booster.
Yeah, because
Mm,
ketamine's not a medication that's given to manage. Ketamine is a
right.
medication that's given to disrupt.
Yes.
That's the goal.
So that's what I'm saying. It wouldn't matter if I wanted ketamine every week. You're not going to allow me to have it because I don't need it every week.
Right. I'm your safeguard. We're your safeguard.
And
Just
and
like
that's what
you can't trust
right.
yourself, you can trust the providers around.
Exactly, and then we need these new medical mental health. Listen, that shit didn't work. It didn't work on everybody. If you can't open your mind up and be willing to put in the effort and the hours to come up with something better, don't open. You're not doing anybody good. My primary care physician can prescribe you that medication. I don't need you at that point. If you're not bringing something new to the table, you're not
Well,
helping
but
us.
right, but a lot of people don't feel like they can do the work because they're so overstimulated anyway. And that's what they need to hear is that the first piece is we get you to a space to where you feel like you can breathe.
No, I'm talking about medical providers. I'm saying
Oh, we
if
suck.
you're not, yeah, if you're not willing to put in the
Like
hours you're putting in, don't
they
open
don't they don't
a
know, Dave.
mental clinic. Do not open one if you're not willing to think outside the box, research, and constantly be trying to improve someone's quality of life. Don't keep
Yeah.
going to medicine A, B, C,
Here's
D,
who's
E.
training. Let me tell you who's training mental health provider or primary care providers and psychiatrists, and then we'll get off because we've been on for a long time, Dave. This is our longest one, Carla. Um, rest.
Congratulations, Carla. World
You're gonna
record
trust
holder
me.
right
Longest
here.
one. The people that are training your prescribers are not clinicians. They're sales people.
Yes.
That's what you need to hear is
Yeah.
all those prescription medicines are not coming from a provider. They're not coming from a clinician. They're not coming from a scientist. They are coming from a business model to sell you their product. And
Yeah.
that
And
needs to stop. You know what else needs to stop that RFK can help with this? And this is I love this question. You know why I love this question? Because I know I'm right when I ask it. And I ask it so people can actually tell me I'm right. So I'll say, hey, how many times has your rep actually taught you on how to deprescribe someone from something that you start them on?
or yeah, because he's not.
Never.
He's brought donuts in and stuff to make sure that you're happy
Dave,
and you want to keep
the
prescribing that
FDA
medication.
the FDA does not have any type of prescribing instructions to take anyone off of medications. And that right there should be RFK's first lawsuit. Because here's the thing, unless they have FDA approved clinical trials that shows you should be on Wellbutrin or Effexor or whatever you want to be on for the next 40 years and actually shows those 40 years of outcomes, they cannot have you on it for 40 years because that's fraud. Like there's nothing backing that. So the longest trials, believe it or not, the longest trials with all these antidepressants, Dave, 90 days. 90 days. There is no science that proves you should be on any of these substances greater than 90 days. So why the hell are we? It's a sales game.
Uh,
It's a business model. Why has nobody changed it? Because their business model works, and that's what they want. They want repetitive customers, and they want consistent income, and they want to have all of their glorious lives, and all of that needs to be blown up.
yeah, that's the funny thing about it. You don't want me as being a repeat customer.
No, because I want to be effective because I think these other people are losers.
They are.
Personal opinion.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
keep
See
coming
this.
back.
Listen,
I'm
wait a
failing
minute,
you, and I
Carla.
suck.
This is where Katie has gotten to in life because when she first really like when she went all in with this, she still tried not to offend anyone and trying to get
Oh,
what she was trying to
now I
accomplish.
don't care.
And now she don't give a shit because she's right 90% of the time. The 10% she's wrong is when it's dealing with me,
Right.
and
When
I'm
Dave's
right.
right.
Right. Hey,
I
Carla,
love it.
I want to thank you. Well, for what Katie said about me not recognizing what I'm doing. You just don't know what you just did for a lot of people out there.
Well, I want you to know how special you are to me. And I think, real quick, that even though Matthew was only in law enforcement at the time for going on 3 years, he said to me one day, like, I just don't feel like I really made a difference. And I want you to know that the hand you were dealt for being such a special person and what you did was shitty. And I'm sorry for it. And I want you to know what a very important person that you are.
And how many
Well,
people are looking up to him?
you
Yes.
tell Matthew though, just by the fact that he gave your blessing to come on this show, he saved he saved somebody's life. I
Yes.
promise you, he did.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter if he
It
doesn't.
takes all of us.
Yeah, but it
We're all a
doesn't matter
tribe. We're all a pack.
if he
Mhm.
doesn't feel like he made a difference in law enforcement. It's what he did. The fact that he did law enforcement where he's making a difference at now because he saved somebody's life.
Oh, look at you, Dave. You
Yes.
said basically what you're doing right now, my friend.
Yeah, but that's me. I can argue that. But you can't see what you do, but you can see what someone else does.
Right.
But guess what?
I'll
Y'all were
argue
in
that
the
with you,
same
Katie.
profession. Y'all were in the
What?
same profession. So
Same profession, public servants, one way or the other. And right now, what
Yeah.
they're doing, they're being public servants for the communities, yes, but they're also being public servants for their brothers and sisters.
But it's not just a community. You take that oath, and that means if you in California and someone's harming somebody, it's your duty, it's your oath, it's your job to try to protect that person. It's
oh yeah,
not to run the other way.
right.
It's you're protecting the country in the country.
Yes,
I protected the United States. I never had to go to foreign soul, thank goodness.
right.
And I never wish that on anybody.
Hmm.
But I also walk out of my front door every day into my same environment
Hmm.
that put me where I'm at.
I think it's true what they say, once a police officer, always a police officer. You can
100%.
quit other
Unfortunately,
professions and walk away, but it'll never leave you. You'll always have that wonderful heart about you when it comes to helping other people. And we're blessed because
well,
of you.
yeah, 100%. But it's taken me 5 or 6 years to not hate that job and realize what all it did. It provided my family and me a life. It provided food, a shelter, you know. But I hated it for a while. I absolutely hated it.
Very
Um,
understandably so. Very
Mhm.
yeah.
understandably so.
We still
Carla,
have ways to
maybe
go.
we can do an update on how things are
Yes.
going in like
Yeah.
a few months.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's
Sounds
right.
good.
And
We're on it. Thank you, Carla. We
Oh,
greatly
thank
yes,
you
thank you.
appreciate it.
guys.
And thank you for all your time sacrificing.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
Carla, you've got my number if you've ever got questions. Okay.
Yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you
Thank
so
All
you
right.
much.
so
Have a
much.
great night,
You
All
all
right.
Katie.
too. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
so much.
Bye
Okay. Love
bye.
you guys.
Bye,
Okay.
Love
guys.
you too. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.